Recording. Good afternoon, everybody. Today, Contra Costa Taxpayers is pleased and privileged to have Michael McGill and Emily Barnett from the Central Sanitary District. And they're going to talk about a couple of interesting things on what's getting in our water system, untreated waste, and the Sustainable Farm Project, which is very exciting. So at this point, I'd like everybody to unmute or mute them, keep themselves muted. Other people will be coming in, and I'll have Mike start off so Emily can set up. She will be using the share screen, so you'll have some visual references. Mike McGill, please take it away.
Thanks, Sue. And of course, everybody, you can always go to that chat feature and hit the clap your hands, and we'll see everybody applauding. I'll give a little background on myself first, then I'll let Emily say something about herself, and I'll make excuses early. Emily and I did put the slides together, but we did not dry run this presentation, so bear with us as we go through it. I think most of you know who I am, but for those of you that don't, I am Mike McGill, a board member at Central Contra Costa Sanitary District. I'm board president this year. I'm a professional civil engineer. I've been a professional engineer since 1977. I have a master's in civil engineering from the University of Michigan, and then a second master's degree from the University of Michigan in water resource engineering. I was first elected to the Central Sanitary District Board in 2006, and I'm really happy to be providing you this information today. I will periodically stop to take some questions as topics change. You can always put them into the chat box, and Denise or Sue can feed me those, or you can wait till I pause. And Emily, thank you very much for joining me today. This is the first time we're tag teaming this way, so I know we'll do a great job. And would you like to give a little more background on yourself, please?
My name is Emily Barnett. I handle all the communications and government relations for the district, and that's at anything from the local level to the federal level. I also advocate in Sacramento often, which is what seems to take up most of my day, even under their COVID conditions that they have. But I love, if you've seen our newsletter, like the pipeline and any district communications, that runs out of my shop. It's one of my favorite things. I can't deal with all electeds at one time, and I can't do all communications at one time. So the best job, I do them both together, half and half. I've almost been 5 years. August 10th is going to be my 5th year anniversary with the district. I'm a former PG&Er, and even though PG&E is a very bad term, sometimes I love PG&E. I still bleed blue. They do a lot of things right, although they're in hard times. So don't beat up on anyone but the person on this call from PG&E. He deserves it. But thank you for letting me. Mike's going to let me talk about a couple of passion projects I have that are communications and government relations focused. So that's why I'll take on a few of these slides. But thanks for being here. I'm really excited to talk about Central San.
And good thing Tom is muted. Okay, let's move to our service area and our services, and I'll do some explanation here. This is the greater area that Central San encounters, or encompasses, I should say. The area that's kind of in a pinky purple are Concord and Clayton. They are not directly in our service area. We provide wastewater treatment services to Concord, and Clayton sewage is delivered to Concord. Concord, once upon a time, had their own wastewater treatment facility. It's where the water park is now. But when the Clean Water Act became more stringent, it was far more cost effective for them to divert their wastewater to Central San, so we provide service for them. The area that's in green up to the north is Mount View Sanitary. It is its own sanitary district, and I'll talk about that a little bit more. And then the green area at the far south of the screen is a portion of San Ramon that we do not serve, except for our household hazardous waste. They actually go to DSRSD, Dublin San Ramon Service District. There's a little ridge in there, and our orange area flows north, that little green area in the south flows south, and so they're in two different sanitary districts. We do a wastewater collection and treatment in that total area for about 500,000 residents and about 3,000 businesses. We currently produce about 6 million gallons of recycled water annually, and I'll come back and talk about that a little bit more later. We also operate a household hazardous waste collection facility, which you now need to call and make an appointment to come in. And we provide pharmaceutical collection for the central Contra Costa area. Now, I told you I was going to talk about Mountain View. Sorry, not Mountain View. Everybody does that. I do it occasionally. It's Mount View. There's a lot of different stories why we ended up with this donut hole in the central Contra Costa Sanitary District area. The story I like is after the Clean Water Act was adopted in the early 1970s, that while EPA was building large regional treatment plants, and Central San was one of those large regional treatment plants, they wanted to experiment with some marsh and water treatment, and that's what Mount View does. They use a trickling filter as their secondary treatment process, and then they discharge to a series of marshes before it eventually goes to the McNabney Bird Preserve, which is on when you drive up 680, and just before you go up and over the bridge over the river, if you look down to your right, that's where the preserve is. And this slide also shows you better the Dublin San Ramon Service District area that's in San Ramon. They can participate in our household hazardous waste, but we do not do wastewater treatment for them. We are doing a shared project right now with Dublin San Ramon to divert some of our wastewater from that area to them, so they have more flow to do their recycled water program. Now let's take a look at our annual rate projections and the increases we have. And I'll show you where this money is going to go in a little bit. I want to call your attention to the 2021 rate increase that on the books is now $629 per residential unit. But we declared, as some board members would call it, a rate increase holiday. So even though our rate did go to $629, we're only collecting the $598, which was the current rate in 19 and 20. You can see we're running at about a 5% increase until 22, 23, and then we drop to about a 4% increase, and it falls from there. Emily, do you want to say anything about those rate projections?
So they seem to be in line with what we're seeing from other agencies, maybe a bit lower. And certainly they're on par with water agencies in the area as well, if not a bit lower.
And, you know, I know lots of different agencies compare their rates to other agencies' rates. We do the equivalent of zero-based budgeting as we look at the money we're spending each year and the rates. Our measure is not what other agencies are doing. Our measure is what's needed, and are we doing everything we can to be most cost effective? Because as Roger Bailey, our general manager, has said, and I think he said to you when he talked to you a couple of years ago, rates really do matter. The next slide shows the rate relief this holiday. We sent this flyer out that's on your right, announcing we were doing this pause in a rate increase or in in collection of the rate increase. Some people said, why do you spend the money on sending out a flyer? Well, 218 requires notification when we do something like this. So we chose to use this flyer. The flyer on the left is one that Concord sent out. They're also doing a rate relief program modeled after ours. Emily, anything to add to that?
So,
Okay. So now let's look at our annual budgets, and we've broken this down into two pieces. The top line is operation and maintenance. The next line down is capital improvements. And then the capital improvements are broken down by the various elements within our operations. We are trying very, very hard to keep our O&M budget flat as we go through these various rate increases, because we're trying to put all the additional money into our capital improvements. Our plant is 30 to 40 years old at this point in time. Much of the underground system is older than that, even, because we inherited the system when we came into existence in 1946. So we have some very old pipes. And this is just what we have to spend to keep meeting the legal requirement of our discharge permit. And I'll pause there for just a minute to see if anybody has questions on our rate relief or our annual budget. And you can go ahead and type them into the slide or into the chat, and Sue can let me know what she's getting. And since we're taping this, I don't want too much dead air time. So let's take a quick look at where our rates are going. Sue, what's that one from Michael?
It says, does your O&M budget, second here. Does your O&M budget account for projected pension increases?
Yes. And we're in pretty good shape relative to pension increases, because we anticipated what was going to happen with pensions, and we have been setting aside additional funds each year, so that we're not just relying on how much do Cicera have in the bank for us, so to speak, but we have a dedicated fund that we're supplementing. So we're doing things to keep the O&M flat that way. You can see the yellows on this slide, 1819, the blue is 1920, the green is 2021. O&M, you can see the flatness there. It's our biggest component. You can see our capital improvement program growing. We actually have a 20-year capital improvement program, and we're doing a risk analysis and condition assessment on all of our facilities on an ongoing basis. We can't afford to have a failure, but at the same time, we don't want to be foolish in replacing something that's still working just fine. A couple of years ago, we were planning to replace our furnaces because they were 20 plus years old. And when I say furnaces, we burn our sludge. And then when we did our condition assessment just before we were going to go into design, we discovered with a little bit of maintenance, we could get at least another 10 years out of them, and maybe another 20. So they moved off the current project list and sometime into the future list. You can see we have very little debt service. We have a little self-insurance, and we've been building up some reserves. Now, we did reduce our pension and OPEB liabilities. At the end of 19, Cicera was 74 million. That's 84.6% funded. I don't know where it's at currently. And then when I talked about a pre-funding trust, we have a little over $10 million in that right now. Our other post-employment benefit, we're 84% funded there also. And we have an OPEB trust that has 69 million. Shortly after I came on the board, we decided we should create a trust to cover that obligation so we don't have any dramatic increases. And we caught the market very well. We didn't put $70 million in that fund. A lot of that is growth. And then the biggest thing that helped is we changed our healthcare system to the CalPERS health system. Our employees have all the same coverage they had previously, but it's costing us $5 million less a year. So that's a good news story. Okay, before I go into recycled water, which is our next topic, any comments on rates, expenses?
Not seeing anything coming in.
Good. Okay, let's go
I'll
to
let you know if something does.
Okay, thanks, Sue. Recycled water. Our treatment process has primary treatment, which is just bringing the water in, slowing it down, letting the heavy material settle out of it. Then we go into a secondary treatment process, which is a biological treatment process where good bugs eat up everything that we need to get out of that wastewater that creates a biochemical oxygen demand and it causes a great deal of damage in the environment. And then prior to discharge, it goes through a high intensity ultraviolet light process to kill viruses and bacteria. And then our water is discharged to Suisun Bay. For the recycled water, instead of being discharged to Suisun Bay, it goes through a recycled water facility that has additional filtration. There is additional disinfection with chlorine. It sits in a contact basin. We're testing it constantly, and we treat it to a level that it meets what California calls Title 22 water, which means it's approved for not just irrigation use, but actual agricultural production. And I'll talk about that in a little bit. So processed water is the first thing we do. Zone 1 on this map, you can see the pinky purpley area that's running along 680 down to Pleasant Hill along Concord. We can only provide recycled water where there's both physical pipes as well as where the Contra Costa Water District has given us permission to provide that water. So this zone 1 is the pinky purple area, and Contra Costa Water District has given us permission to deliver recycled water in that area. Much of it is used for landscape irrigation right now. We also have our residential fill stations. Residents of our service area can come in and pick up recycled water. I believe it's up to 300 gallons at a time. And water is very heavy, but some people have actually purchased trailers or installed tanks on the back of their pickup trucks. They come in and pick this up. And during the drought, it was very much appreciated. Probably the most innovative thing we have going right now is our water exchange project. We have a memorandum of understanding with Valley Water down in Santa Clara in the Contra Costa Water District. And the proposal is we would provide 22 million gallons a day of water to CCWD that they would then provide to the refineries. They currently provide that much water to the refineries from their supply from the Delta. That would free up the Delta supply, and then the 22 million gallons would be transferred down to Valley Water. So in water engineering terms, this is called wheeling. We give our water to CCWD, CCWD gives their water to Valley Water, and there is a South Bay aqueduct connection to make that happen. And hopefully we can pull this project off. If we were in Southern California, it'd probably be done already. Here in Northern California, we have many years when there's an abundance of water, so desperation only sets in periodically. We also have the CoCo Sand Sustainable Farm. I'll show you a couple of photos here, and then I have an additional slide deck at the end of this where I'll give you some history of how we got to CoCo Sand Sustainable Farm. But it is an effort to use this Title 22 recycled water on a 15-acre site that Central Sand has. We donate food to the food bank and White Pony Express, which is a nonprofit that delivers to other nonprofits. Last year, we donated about 12,000 pounds. This year in July, we're almost at 12,000 pounds for just the month. So it's being fairly successful to very successful. Last year was our first demonstration that 12,000 pounds came off a quarter acre. We're up to about a third of an acre now, and we're producing far more in produce. And like I said, I'll come back and talk about the farm some more at the end of these generalized slides. Let's go to COVID-19 response. When COVID hit, the first thing we had to move on was to make sure we could continue service. We could not afford to not be able to treat wastewater. We could not afford to have our spills in our collection system. So we moved quite aggressively to make sure we could keep our employees safe and continue service. A lot of people will ask me the question of, are you worried about the COVID in the wastewater treatment process? And we as a society are lucky from the standpoint of COVID. My slideshow just changed here. The COVID virus is not a very vigorous virus. It's not a hardy virus. The process we use to treat wastewater and kill viruses and bacteria already kills viruses that are far more stable than the COVID virus. And you notice I use the word killed. Well, they're not alive to begin with. We're really inactivating those viruses, but the process we use is very effective at doing that. The other big issue, COVID-19, people are really using the Clorox wipes. They're using paper towels with disinfectants. Certainly a lot of people are using latex and rubber gloves. And son of a gun, if they're not flushing all those different things down the toilet. And you shouldn't do that. Never, ever, ever do that. And I'll let Emily talk about that here in just a little bit. The other thing we're doing here at Central Sand is we're working with Stanford and the University of Michigan relative to some research. The industry has known for a long time that you can test wastewater for virus content. We used to in this country test for polio. We don't need to do that because polio is not really pervasive any longer in the US. They do that in Israel still. We can also do that for the COVID-19 virus. We can test wastewater to see if there's areas that have infected people, even if they don't show symptoms. Unfortunately, the cost per test right now is fairly expensive. And the research collaboration is to see, are there ways to make this more effective? So now let's move to.
This is a passion project for me. And again, as Mike has mentioned, wipes continue to be quite an issue. So Central Sand has been working on the wipes issue probably for about 9.5, 10 years, mainly through our customer education programs and dealing with the industry, hoping that they would be wonderful and nice and do something about their terrible product labeling. And I'll talk about how we've kind of fought the industry over time. But certainly, if you've been watching the news, you've seen every article about how wipes are impacting wastewater systems throughout the state and, of course, nationally. These are just some of the local and national headlines that we're seeing. We were interviewed for the Chronicle just recently about wipes ending up in pipes and what it's caused. So let's look about what wipes have been doing regionally. And as Mike had mentioned, it's everything. It's Clorox cleaning wipes, it's baby wipes, you name it. When toilet paper went off the shelves, people turned to paper towels, wipes, and I'm glad that we're being clean folks, but unfortunately they're using the toilet as a trash can, and that's causing huge environmental impacts. I always say to folks that wipe has huge impacts, and I'll walk through how it interacts with our system. So here's a regional look of the San Francisco Bay Area region for sanitary sewer overflows. That's our world, so sewer overflows. We always say the pandemic increases wipes-related overflows. So this is by year. You can see this is just the wipes-related from March 2019 to when the pandemic set in. We expect even more of these in the next quarterly report. All the agencies report on how different overflows take place, and this is something we're experiencing in our system. Now, the gross factor here is what happens when a sanitary sewer overflow occurs. It either floods a home, it floods a street, or it floods a waterway, and that's raw sewage. And so this is, when you're talking about especially COVID-19 and just the gross factor there, but all the other things are in raw sewage. You do not want them in your home, in your street, or in local waterways, which sometimes can be waterways for water agencies to get drinking water. So I put this together, and a lot of our customers are surprised by it. So I always say, what are the true cost of wipes? You're a good shopper, you shop at Costco because buying in bulk helps you save money, and so you pay about 3 cents of a wipe, right? And you're like, well, that's a steal. Everything's clean. I've got 632, what does it say, pre-moistened wipes to deal with. That will last me for a while. At 3 cents a pop, it's a steal. And then we say, but wait, there's more. You're actually paying for 2 Central San employees that are highly skilled and highly trained, that have health benefits and retirement benefits and all the like, to then clean them out of the pipes that go through the street, our collection system. And we have 1,540 miles of collection system pipes. And what we're seeing is when you cook greasy food and all that, we have fats, oils, and grease that get clogged. You pair that with wipes, and then some people flush syringes and you name it. They create these giant rag balls, and we actually have to pay for these employees and huge equipment to go and deal with these wipes. So think about 3 cents plus them, but wait, there's more. We actually have horrified employees that have to pull these out of pump stations. So what happens is we have 18 pump stations. At times the RPM drops, and this has been very frequent. We have to take that pump station offline for a couple hours, an hour to 3 hours, depending on the pump station that we're talking about. The employee literally has to hand pull out, which you can see, this is Anthony. He needed counseling after this. That also costs you as the taxpayer money. We literally put them directly in the trash. Now, again, there's a worker safety issue here too, because you're talking about pulling something with raw sewage out. You can imagine the exposure. And then again, sometimes there's oftentimes syringes that are looped in these. It's absolutely disgusting. So we actually, you as a taxpayer are paying Anthony with health benefits and retirement benefits and wages as well to do this. And then, by the way, they get caught in our treatment plant. This is actually our own treatment plant where you see wipes literally hanging off. You pay an employee to go and clean those out, because every step of the process we have wipes that are causing impacts. And then finally they go to disposal, so you're paying disposal costs. Now we tell customers, instead of doing all of this, could you just throw them in the garbage, or better yet, don't buy them at all? The average cost, there was just a survey that's done, it's going to come out this month, that it's roughly $54 million a year, the impact wipes are having to sewer agencies around the state. And this is just Central Sands impact. You can imagine the costs for all of the wastewater agencies in the state. So here's where you can visually see it. This is our service area. This is every instance over roughly about 2 years that we had wipes in a low, medium, and heavy volume. Those are all what I call the pimple dots of red. We found wipes throughout our system as having issues. So every time we send out someone to go collect, go clean our pipes, they've indicated what the main cause of that clog was. Now, the dark gray pins are every time it caused a stoppage or overflow. So that's where wipes are impacting our system. Again, this is just wipes related overflows and maintenance issues. And I always like to tell folks, there's a disconnect sometimes. They go, well, Central Sands paying for that. You as the Taxpayers Association know that, yes, but you're paying for Central Sands. So once you tell the average customer that, they kind of get very wide-eyed, and there's a connection there with their wallets. And I love doing that and the work that we do. So how have we been fighting this? For the last 3 years, we've been working on what now is AB 1672, where we have forced the manufacturers to come to the table. Again, it's been a 9.5-year process where we've been fighting with them, hoping that they would be kind and just label things properly. If you have heard of things like flushable wipes, they actually do not exist. They're made of plastics. They cause microfibers to get into the waterways. And so we thought that they would have a heart and actually label their things properly instead of worrying about, you know, their sales, but shockingly they don't. So we fought for them. 2 years ago, we ran a bill. They got scared. They came after us. I remember I was in Sacramento lobbying for the district on this bill. And they had 9 huge high-powered lobbyists that I thought were going to shiv me in the elevator that would follow us around to every location. They brought in, I mean, I'm sure they were paid $1,000 an hour, each of them, but they went office after office. We gained so much traction that they got scared. We reran AB 1672 last year. It turned into a 2-year bill. It's gone through the Assembly. It's now in the Senate. We're very proud of it. And the manufacturers thought that they could wear us out. But the wastewater industry is very formidable when we know what's right is right. And so they've come to the table and negotiated AB 1672. It went in print, I think, last week or a week and a half ago. And we expect it to go and fully be signed by the governor, because this is a wonderful bill, especially, you know, when you look at what the state's doing now, very few bills are getting through the legislature, but this is actually considered a COVID safety related bill, which we love because it's preventing impacts to wastewater systems and sanitary sewer overflows. So what does it mean? It means that these manufacturers have to label their products do not flush. They can't hide it. They have to do it a certain way. And I'll show you some visual imagery. Every time they pull out a wipe, it has to show a do not flush symbol on it. If they don't do it, they get fined, and they actually have to run an education campaign. I will say that wastewater is the only one telling customers not to flush wipes. It's high time that the industry have pay for their own mess. And so we're really excited about making them do a 5-year rollout for this. So this is what it will look like. Again, we're still in discussions, but we expect the hearing is August 11th for this bill in the Senate Environmental Quality Committee. I'll be participating, as well as so many other wastewater agencies. But this is a huge, huge win for wastewater in the state.
Emily, let's do a quick pause here to see if anybody has questions on wipes and why you shouldn't flush them. Okay.
Looks like you guys are doing a great job at answering the questions before they come up.
Love it.
As a matter of fact, I just signed up for updates on AB 1672.
Love it. I so appreciate that. It's a huge passion project for me, which is why Mike's been generous to let me speak on it today.
Yeah, And unlike toilet paper, and Emily mentioned this, wipes don't break down. They're really a plastic fiber. And if you do get them to break down, then you do get the microplastic. So all in all, we don't want them down our sewers, into our sewers, or into our waterways. Use toilet paper, please. Let's move to student education programs.
Right. So our new thing, and thankfully the board has agreed with our vision. We as a district have decided to lead student education programs for wastewater in the state over the next 5 years. That is our goal. We're about 2 years in. And I think the thought process for us, the number one goal is try to reduce the impacts on your infrastructure, which all these things we're talking about with wipes and, you know, what have you. Those are all horrible impacts to our infrastructure. They're also very bad impacts to the environment. Microfibers is a great example. So I know that I'm in my very early, should I lie? No, this is being recorded. I won't say how old I am, but I always like to say it's very difficult to teach me a new trick, but it's very good student learning if you can get to students very early on. And so we have rolled out our kindergarten through 2nd grade and even pre-K student ed program, and we will have a full K through 12 sewer science, as it were, student education program that meets all the new state standards and all the new national standards. And this is something that really no one else is doing in this space. We want to build a conscious customer from the very beginning. We say you are our customer the second you use the toilet and wash your hands. We want you to wash your hands after. That's our customer. And so we need to be talking to our customer from the very get-go. So we've been rolling this out with great success. I think we've won 8 awards already, both mostly national and state awards for our Pipe Protectors program. If any of you have children or grandchildren that are interested, let us know. You can chat me and I will, oh, I see Deborah has raised her hand. And I will make sure to have this program in that classroom for you. Is there a question?
Yeah, before you go on, and it'll be great coming in with student education issues. What is the cost of running the sustainable gardens?
You're talking the CoCo Sand Sustainable Farm?
Yeah, I believe so, Deb. That was Deb's question. I believe she's referring to the sustainable.
I can't see a chat part here.
There's at this point in time little to no cost to the district directly because a nonprofit is operating the farm, though Central Stand has provided a land lease with recycled water at $1 a year. So there's some lost opportunity cost in that regard. But we're using it to demonstrate the value of recycled water, which people seem to understand in Northern California. We have a harder time with that concept here in Northern California. And I'll go through that in detail a little bit later.
So if you're interested, please reach out to me. Again, we'd love to have our programming in your, and we're still piloting and building new programs, so you can be really helpful for that. You've probably seen some of our communications. As you heard me earlier, I can't deal with electeds 24/7, but I can do communications and electeds. It's like the sweet spot, right, of my passion areas. So these are all the ways that we communicate with you as a customer. We're considered one of the most proactive agencies in the state with how we communicate with our customers. We don't hide our rate increases on, you know, maybe a little postcard that you can't read that's 8-point font. We really try to tell our story because we think the story is a good one. What we're doing with your dollars, we try to be very transparent. So our budget, our strategic plan, the work that we're doing, all of it showcases how we are taking taxpayer dollars and using them wisely. I like to say that we make promises to you in our Prop 218, and then every communication after that is us fulfilling that promise to you. Not a lot of people do that. Not a lot of agencies do that. I think that that's our way of being very transparent, and we remind our customers. In 2017, we promised you this, and here is that project completed. Here's how much we spent on it, and then we show them the visual imagery of it. It's just a way to build trust. I think there's a lot of agencies that are doing good work, but just don't showcase it. But that's our trust element and with our customers. So these are all the ways that we do it. You can see we do high visual, which I'm very proud of, a lot of videos, commercials. We actually are one of few wastewater agencies that run television commercials in our service area because it's actually the most cost effective and has the best reach. And so I'm hoping that you open your mailbox or turn on the TV and see us. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Got one coming in here. Let's see. Valerie Jo would like to know if it would help if we wrote to our California representatives in support of AB 1672, and how could we publicize support for it?
Absolutely would be wonderful if you could do that. I would love that. As a government agency, we can't tell our customers do this, right? We have to be partisan, but I am hired to do that on behalf of my agency, if that makes sense. But because we're are not partisan, we can't tell our customers to do that. So it's a bit of a fine line, but certainly if you're passionate about it, we encourage our customers, if you feel the same way that we do, take a stand on that and call your local legislators. We actually tweet about it a lot. So social media through our California Association of Sanitation Agencies does a lot of discussion on this. And so we do it through social media with sharing wipe stories and how they impact, and then telling our local legislators, which most of them have been on board. I'm pretty proud of them. They've all been very supportive of it. We honor them when they do those types of things. My letter to the state assembly apparently created quite a discussion. It was told to me because it was 8 pages long and lots of visuals of disgusting sewage and wipes. So we have a name for ourselves of using our high visuals to horrify the legislature. So we've had good success so far. But yes, we'd love your help.
And I see Tom Garino says he's got a good question. So maybe Denise can unmute Tom and let him do his good question.
Yeah, I'll take care of it here. Let me get there.
Don't let them heckle me. I don't want that.
There we are. Actually, he is unmuted.
Tom.
Oh, hi guys. The district seems extremely well run. I kept hearing,
Oh, thank you. You end your question right there.
I said I had a question. That wasn't a good question. I heard Emily comment quite a bit. First, she referred to those of us that live in the district as customers and as taxpayers, and it got me thinking, what are your sources of rent revenue? Is it just from rates that we all pay, or do you get tax money or grants, or can you comment on that, please?
A majority of our funding comes from the sewer service charge, which is on your tax bill. We also get a small portion of the property tax left over back from the time that Prop 13 was adopted. We go after grants whenever we can. And those are the predominant 3 sources of revenue we have. Now, both Concord pays their share of the treatment process. So we do get revenue from Concord, but they just pay their proportional share.
And I know Mike, you and I have had a lot of conversations about the crazy laws in the state of California when it comes to recycled water, and you've expressed your frustration about that. Anything new regarding that? Are we able to use more recycled water? I think you were telling me one time over at Jack's, that we end up dumping a lot of really good water back into the Delta, but I'm not I don't really understand the details of that.
Yeah, we do discharge to Suisun Bay. There is legislation now that has begun to allow indirect potable reuse, and by indirect potable reuse, injecting treated wastewater to a certain standard that can be injected into groundwater or discharged into large water bodies that has exposure to the atmosphere and sunshine for a long enough period of time. And then that water can be used to go into the water treatment process to create potable water. There is some activity to go to direct potable reuse, but that has not occurred yet.
How does that work with the pensions too? If I understood your presentation correctly, and CoCoTax is, I think I look at them as really the experts when it comes to monitoring and being good watchdogs of pension liability. First of all, I didn't know if you have any pension liability or not, but it seemed like you said you transferred the pool, investment pool, from the county to state CalPERS, which I thought was in worse shape than the county. I don't know, I was a little confused on that.
No, that, Tom, that what we did there was, that was the CalPERS runs a health program. They buy pooled health insurance, and we moved our health insurance from our independent source to become part of that system. And because of the buying power, we were able to spend $5 million a year less to provide the same health insurance. Relative to the pensions are still with Cicera, and we rely on them for that. So, anybody else have questions? Okay, seeing none, let's move into the CoCo.
Hey, it's Deborah Allen.
Hello, Deborah Allen.
Hey, it's not as much a question. I just want to thank you, Mike, because not only does Mike do a wonderful job for Central San as a board member, and you know, his leadership there has been tremendous for years, but Mike does so many other things for other groups, and including he is now the president of the Measure RR Bond Oversight Committee for BART. And he's doing a fantastic job there too. And I know he could give a whole nother presentation on that. I would welcome him to come back at a later date and actually give the presentation that was given to our board on that whole topic. But Emily and Mike, you guys are doing fantastic work. And I love seeing people involved in local government agencies that actually care about accountability and transparency the way you do. So thank you.
Thank you. I like questions like that too. Okay, let's move.
Hey, Mike.
To the
Hey, Mike. Bill Baker.
Hello, Bill.
I had a bill before the legislature, which actually passed, requiring all new freeways, in addition to the freeways, to put in recycled water to irrigate all the landscaping. The freshwater agencies, notably LA, made us take the mandate out. So it's now a law that says we can use it, but it doesn't mandate them to do it within 5 years. Again, inter-water bickering, but that would have taken place way back in the 90s. So if you dig up that bill, you'll find that there's a resource there if you can convince Caltrans and others to put the pipes in, or maybe share the cost with them. You can use a lot of water along the freeways and roadways.
Yeah, no, that's a great use for water, so it doesn't get dumped into the bay. Though someday, and I'm not sure when that someday is, all our recycled water may be too valuable to use for landscape irrigation. We have to put it to more productive use. But in the interim, if people are using potable water or raw water supply that could be made into potable water, a much better use would be recycled water. And Bill, you were way ahead of the game in introducing that legislation back in the 90s. Okay, now we're going to head for the CoCo San Sustainable Farm. And this is not a Central San slide deck. This is a slide deck that I borrowed from Aglantis. Aglantis is a 501c3. They are the group that's doing the CoCo San Sustainable Farm. Aglantis's mission is to promote food equity and health, to protect the environment, educate, and promote economic development. They refer to it as the 4 E's. This is what Aglantis is up to. From my perspective at Central Sand, my focus is I really do want everybody to understand the value of this water that we're discharging to Sassoon Bay. Any place from 20 to 40 million gallons a day on a dry day, and it gets up to 100 million gallons a day during the rainy season, possibly more. And I would like to see that hose turned around and all that water used back on land in one form or another. The first thing was mission for Aglantis was food equity. You can see some of the statistics on that slide relative to hunger and nutritional poverty. Again, not a mission of Central Sand, a mission of Aglantis. And they say part of the solution to this food equity is urban farming on public buffer lands near recycled water facilities. They're trying to demonstrate that this works and it's replicable. There's a number of wastewater agencies that both have potential Title 22 water and available land. Their second mission is environmental protection, and I really like them talking about we can't use our water just once. They are absolutely right. And then the CoCo Sand Sustainable Solution is using our recycled water to irrigate food crops. We actually call it fertigation. There is nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium in our Title 22 recycled water. As Emily will tell you, we have people that pick up from the residential fill station, and they come back and testify how vigorous their tomatoes are. And I can tell you, working on the farm every Saturday, I still go out and volunteer. We have created a jungle of tomato plants. Now, the Central Sand site, what you're seeing in the center of the picture is the parcel of land. It's 15 acres. On the south side is Highway 4. Immediately south of Highway 4, you can see the runways for Buchanan Field. So it's essentially just north of Buchanan Field, north of the freeway. And then there is Grayson Creek on the left. There is Walnut Creek, the creek on the right. Imhoff Drive runs along the north side of the property. That's a 30-acre site. And 1/2 of that site, 15 acres, has now been dedicated to this farm operation. On July 3rd, 2014, this is what this, whoops, next slide, please, Emily. The site looked like this. There's Mount Diablo in the background. You can see some trucks on Highway 4. It had dirt, not soil. The next slide, please, Emily. And what this was much of this dirt here came from the Highway 4 widening project. It was tested to make sure it wasn't contaminated. It was brought in to fill a low-lying area that the sanitary district owned. It had lots of minerals in it. It just didn't have any, if any, organics in it. So it wasn't ready to grow anything. So EcoMulch donated about $1 million equivalent of mulch. We put 2 feet of mulch over the entire site. That's 30 acre feet of mulch. That gives us carbon. We put a foot of partially decomposed organic horse manure that provided nitrogen. Central Sand did put in the basic recycled water connection. And then we started putting in farm irrigation, or I should say they did in 2018 because Central Sand didn't do it, though we inspected the work to make sure it was all up to code. In September 29th of 2018, volunteers helped put in planting beds and installed the drip irrigation. The Diablo Valley College horticulture students did the first planting of crops in 2018, October of 2018. They covered the crops with this fabric that lets sunshine in, but keeps the birds out. And Akalani's high school students helped do that work. And the first harvest was in November 19, 2018. And you can see we were all practicing face coverings back then. And of course, that was because of the fires at that time. And we actually got, Aglantis likes to say they made soil. Their lead farmer, who is Bethlyn Black, who's the professor of horticulture at DVC, said, no, you can't make soil that fast. It takes 10,000 years. In a way, it's a aquaponics equivalent type program. It's a growing medium that the recycled water allows the plants to reproduce in. In the first year, on a quarter acre, they grew 12,000 pounds. Much of it donated to the food bank and White Pony Express. It included potatoes. Oops, look who's there. There I am with my funny hat, holding a Romanesco, which is a plant that's in the broccoli family. It's quite delicious, as are the greens. You can either eat the flowering head or you can eat the leaves. And in the background, you can see the propagation greenhouse that's been installed. We didn't have to use that this year. We thought we would. And again, when I say we, it's Aglantis. I'm just a volunteer out there. But because the COVID-19 shut down the plant sales at both DVC and the Master Gardeners programs, they donated plants to the CoCo San Sustainable Farm. So we were able to get our plants that way instead of having to start our own plants in that propagation greenhouse. This year in 2020, we've gotten up to 10,000 pounds. So we're quite happy with that. That's not quite what the farm looks like now. It's even a bigger jungle. And then as part of the mission for Aglantis is education. They do soil science, water science, and you can read the rest. We have brought the students out to tour our Central Sand facilities. We give on-site talks. And those are on the farm site. Mission 4, economic development. And the county supervisors very much support this project. They'd like to see the value of recycled water used for the economy along the northern waterfront. The Workforce Development Board funds workforce investment and opportunity volunteers, and they're out working on the farm. AgraTech donated a $100,000 greenhouse, which is sitting in a warehouse at Central Sand. We still have to raise about another $50,000 to get it erected. And we will do direct hydroponics in that greenhouse. So in addition to having the propagation greenhouse, we'll have this. It's about 1/5 of an acre greenhouse that will be a production greenhouse. There we have more interns. I guess those are the same two. This is, you can see their masks now, it's COVID. This is what the AgraTech Solar Light Greenhouse looks like. This was up in Santa Rosa. We went up to see how did it work. And those tomato plants and not only extend 16 feet up to the ceiling, they run along the floor for about 20 feet before they rise vertically. And they're not even using recycled water. So there's a lot of potential in that AgraTech greenhouse. It's scalable. In the Bay Area, about 1 trillion gallons of treated wastewater is discharged. There's 5,000 acres of buffer land in Contra Costa County, and there's 160,000 hungry people, 25% of those children. So we're hoping that Scalable will provide nutrition for those in need. So back again to the quadruple bottom line: food equity, environmental protection, education and job training, and economic development. And then this is the board of Aglantis. And there's contact information for Aglantis if you want it. And I ran through that really fast, but I would take questions if anybody has 1 or 2 or 3 or more.
We'll give them a minute. That was a great presentation, both of you. That was just fabulous. I can't wait to share this with more people.
Well, thank you. And I maybe ran through it too fast. I was worried about running out of time. Emily and I were concerned that we would use up all the time. So we appreciate you giving us extra time today.
No problem. Could you send us the PowerPoint that we can attach with the video on the CoCoTax website?
I believe we can do that, can't we, Emily?
Absolutely. We'll send you a link to it. It's rather large, so we can't email it to you, but we can send you a link to it.
That'll be fine. That makes it easy for people who will look at it later and may want to just refer to individual slides. I'm not seeing any questions, so I think you've covered everything, and there's a lot to digest in here. I think we'll wrap that up for today. It is now 10 after 1, so I guess it's time to wrap up everybody's lunch hour session. I want to thank everybody for tuning in. Special thanks to Emily Barnett and Mike McGill from Central SAN for all the great information. And it's going to make a wonderful reference package to pass on to other people. It should be on the CoCoTax website within a week if technology gods are with us. We have this video Zoom presentation and others. The next one coming up will be Wednesday, August 5th, where we are fortunate to have Deb Allen with us. And she'll be talking about BART. And as we know, there she is getting ready for us. And, you know, we know there's a lot to talk about there. And our Zoom presentations are made possible from our spring appeal. We want to thank everybody who contributed. Because of COVID, our finances are impacted just like everybody else. So this is one thing that we can offer with thanks to our fiscally supportive members and friends. So until August 5th, or until we see you again, I would say be happy, be safe, and be well informed. Have a good day, everybody.
Thank you, Sue. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Well.